Friends from the media, good evening. The press conference of the fourth session of the 13th MPC now begins. Just now, the Presidium held its first meeting, where Mr. Zhang Yesui was designated spokesperson of the session. I now invite Mr. Zhang to brief you on the agenda of the session and relevant arrangements, and take your questions on the agenda and work related to the MPC. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, friends from the media, good evening. Welcome to the press conference of the fourth session of the 13th National People's Congress. Just now, the preparatory meeting adopted the agenda of the session. Of the 2,953 deputies to the 13th MPC, 2,907 have checked in. We now have everything ready for the session. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the Communist Party of China. The upcoming session will be a major event on China's political agenda as we stand at the new historic starting point of China's development. The session will be held under the guidance of Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, and in adherence to the CPC leadership, the running of the country by the people, and law-based governance. It will focus on the top priorities of the party and the country, and earnestly exercise its functions and powers as stipulated in the Constitution and other laws. It will be a democratic, results-oriented, and inspiring session of unity. The session will last 7 days and close on the afternoon of March the 11th, and will include 3 plenary meetings. There are 10 items on the agenda. First, to deliberate on the work report of the government. Second, to review the draft outline of the 14th Five-Year Plan for Economic and Social Development and the long-range goals for 2035. Third, to review the implementation report of the 2020 Plan for National Economic and Social Development and the 2021 Draft Plan. Fourth, to review the execution report of the 2020 central and local budgets and the 2021 draft plan. Fifth, to deliberate on the MPC Standing Committee's bill on submitting for deliberation the draft amendment to the Organic Law of the National People's Congress. Sixth, to deliberate on the MPC Standing Committee's bill on submitting for deliberation the draft amendment to the Rules of Procedure for the National People's Congress. Seventh, to deliberate on the draft decision of the National People's Congress on improving the electoral system of the Hong Kong SAR. Eighth, to deliberate on the work report of the MPC Standing Committee. Ninth, to deliberate on the work report of the Supreme People's Court. And 10th, to deliberate on the work report of the Supreme People's Procuratorate. Like the third session of the 13th MPC, this year's session will be shortened as appropriate. The session will stick to its set agenda and format and keep all essential components as necessary: the preparatory meeting, plenary meetings, meetings of the Presidium, meetings of the Standing Chairman of the Presidium, plenary meetings of delegations, and group meetings of the deputies will all be convened in strict accordance with relevant laws and legal procedures. Press conferences, interviews at the Deputies' Corridor and the Ministers' Corridor, and other media stakeouts will be conducted via video link. All interviews by Chinese and foreign journalists will be conducted through the Internet, via video link, or in writing. A spokesperson will be designated for each delegation, and the video interview rooms under the press center of the session will be set up where the delegations are staying to facilitate virtual interviews of deputies. For details on the program of the session, the arrangement of press conferences and interviews, and major documents to be released during the session, including versions in foreign languages, please follow the updates on the web page of the Press Center. During the session, necessary COVID-19 protocols will be implemented. The session will strictly follow the CPC Central Committee's 8-point decision on improving party and government conduct and its implementation regulations. The session will practice economy, prohibit extravagance, and uphold the principles of pragmatism, efficiency, and integrity. We will do our best to facilitate your work in covering this year's session. I wish you every success. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. The system of people's congresses is a key component of the socialist system with Chinese characteristics. It is China's fundamental political system as stipulated by the Constitution.
这个制度是由中国共产党领导人民在长期革命和建设实践中，经过反复比较、探索形成，并且不断完善发展的。
This system was formed, developed, and improved in the long course of revolution and development practice, and after years of experiment and exploration by the Chinese people under the leadership of the CPC.
实践证明，人民代表大会制度是符合中国国情和实际，体现社会主义国家性质，保证人民当家作主，保障实现中华民族伟大复兴的好制度。
The system has proved to be a good system, as it fits China's reality, embodies the nature of socialist country, ensures that people are the masters of the country, and underpins the efforts to achieve great national renewal.
一是保证党领导人民有效治理国家，中国共产党始终代表中国最广大人民根本利益，没有自己特殊的利益。中国宪法以国家根本法的形式确认了中国共产党的领导地位。
First, the system ensures effective governance of the country by the people under the leadership of the party. The CPC always represents the fundamental interest of the broadest possible majority of the people. It has no special interest of its own. The Constitution, which is the basic law of the state, affirms the leadership of the CPC.
党通过人民代表大会制度，使党的主张通过法定程序成为国家意志，保证党的路线方针政策和决策部署在国家工作中得到全面贯彻和有效执行。党领导人民制定宪法法律，执行宪法法律，党自身在宪法法律范围内活动。
Through the People's Congresses, the party turns its propositions into the will of the state through legal procedures and ensures its lines, principles, policies, decisions, and plans are fully and effectively implemented in the work of the country. The party leads the people in drawing up and enforcing the Constitution and other laws and conducts its activities within the confines of the Constitution and other laws.
二是支持和保障人民当家作主。人民当家作主是社会主义民主政治的本质特征。人民代表大会制度是人民当家作主的最好组织形式。我国共有5级人大代表262万多名，包括各阶层、各地区、各民族、各方面的代表。那么其中的县乡两级人大代表占到代表总数的94%，是由选民一人一票选出来的。
Second, the system supports and makes sure that the country is run by the people. People running the country is an essential feature of socialist democracy, and the system of People's Congresses is the best form of organization to achieve it. Today, in all the 5 levels of People's Congresses, there are 2.62 million deputies representing all social groups, regions, ethnic groups, and sectors. The number of deputies at the county and village levels accounts for 94% of the total, and they are elected by the people with 1 person, 1 vote.
代表们发挥来自人民、植根人民的特点和优势，听取或反映群众的愿望心声，代表人民行使国家权力，通过人大制度进行民主决策、民主管理和民主监督，确保人民权益得到 实现和维护。
Deputies to the People's Congresses have unique strengths as they come from the people and take root among the people. They listen to and reflect the will of the people, exercise state power on behalf of the people, carry out democratic decision-making, administration, and oversight through the system of People's Congresses, and they work to guarantee and safeguard the rights and interests of the people.
三是有效推进全面依法治国，实现人民民主必须坚持依法治国，维护宪法法律权威，使民主制度化、法律化。到目前为止，我国现行有效法律275件，行政法规600多件，地方性法规12000多件，国家或社会生活各方面都实现了有法可依，法治国家、法治政府、法治社会一体建设取得历史性成就。
Third, the system effectively advances law-based governance in all areas. In developing people's democracy, it is essential to uphold law-based governance and the authority of the Constitution, so that democracy is underpinned by sound institutions and legal framework. In China, there are 275 pieces of laws currently effective, over 600 administrative rules and regulations, and 12,000 local regulations. This means that all aspects of state and social activities are regulated by law. It also marks a historic achievement in building a country, government, and society based on the rule of law.
四是保证国家机关协调高效运转，人民代表大会统一行使国家权力，各级国家机关都由人大产生，对人大负责，受人大监督。各国家机关既合理分工，又密切协作，形成一个有机、统一、高效的整体。
Fourth, the system ensures state institutions function effectively and in coordination. People's Congresses exercise state power in a unified way. State institutions at all levels are elected by, responsible to, and supervised by the People's Congresses. State institutions operate with a clear division of responsibilities and also in close coordination with one another. Together, they form an integrated and efficient whole.
人大依法监督依府依委两院的工作，这既是一种制约，又是支持和促进，有利于提高国家治理的效能。
In accordance with law, People's Congresses supervise the work of governments, courts, and procuratoriates. This is a way of balancing and also to support and facilitate their work. This has helped to make governance more efficient.
这次大会审议修改全国人大组织法和议事规则，就是总结实践经验，坚持和完善人民代表大会制度，以更好适应形势的新发展和人民群众的新期待。谢谢。
During this session, the organic law and the rules of procedures will be reviewed and amended. The purpose is to take stock of past experience to carry on and improve the system of People's Congresses so that it can better adapt to the changing circumstances and respond to the new expectations of the people. Thank you.
谢谢，请继续提问。请北区第3排第2位男士提问，谢谢。
谢谢， 我是香港凤凰卫视、凤凰网、凤凰秀的记者霍伟伟。刚刚发言人是提到了，在今天的大会预备会通过的议程当中，13届全国人大4次会议的议程当中有一项是要审议全国人民代表大会关于完善香港特别行政区选举制度决定的草案。请问这是否意味着全国人大将会对香港的选举制度做出修改？会怎样修改？谢谢。
Phoenix TV, you mentioned in the opening remarks that on the agenda of the upcoming session adopted by the preparatory meeting earlier today, one of the items is to deliberate on the draft decision of the MPC on improving the electoral system of the Hong Kong SAR. Does it mean the MPC will make changes to Hong Kong's electoral system? And what kind of changes? Thank you.
好，谢谢你的提问。香港特别行政区的选举制度是特别行政区政治体制的重要组成部分。
Thank you for the question. The electoral system of the Hong Kong SAR is an important part of Hong Kong's political structure.
近年来的情况表明，香港特别行政区选举制度需要与时俱进，做出完善，为全面准确贯彻一国两制方针，全面落实爱国者治港原则，提供健全的制度保障。
The developments in recent years show that the electoral system needs to be improved to keep abreast with the times and to provide sound institutional guarantee for the full and accurate implementation of the one country, two systems and the principle of patriots administering Hong Kong.
全国人民代表大会作为最高国家权力机关，行使宪法和基本法赋予的职权，从宪制层面对香港特别行政区选举制度作出决定，既是全国人民代表大会的权利，也是全国人民代表大会的责任。
The National People's Congress is the supreme organ of state power. It exercises its functions and powers under the Constitution and the Basic Law, makes the decision to improve Hong Kong SAR's electoral system consistent with the Constitution. This is the power of the MPC, as well as its responsibility.
关于这项议程的具体内容，请你关注后续会议的情况。谢谢。
For further details on this matter, please follow the upcoming session in the next few days. Thank you.
谢谢，请继续提问。请北区第3排第4位女士提问，谢谢。
A question from the Straits Times of Singapore. So as China has now moved away from poverty alleviation to now rural revitalization, how will poverty alleviation work continue? And is there a worry that people will now backslide into poverty again, and how are authorities guarding against this? And finally, could you also explain China's poverty standards, which is somewhat different from international standards?
新加坡海峡时报，随着乡村振兴成为新的工作重点，中国未来将如何继续推进脱贫工作？是否担心出现返贫现象？那么有关部门将如何防止这种情况发生？此外，您能否介绍一下中国的扶贫标准是否不同于国际水平？谢谢。
好，谢谢你的提问。在以习近平同志为核心的党中央坚强领导下，经过全党全国各族人民共同努力，我国脱贫攻坚战取得了全面胜利，区域性整体贫困得到解决，完成了消除绝对贫困的艰巨任务，提前10年实现联合国2030年可持续发展议程相关减贫目标，为全球减贫事业做出了重大贡献。
Thank you for the question. Under the strong leadership of the CPC, with Comrade Xi Jinping at the core, and with the hard work of the party and all Chinese people, we have secured an all-round victory in the fight against poverty. All poor counties and regions have been pulled out of poverty. Absolute poverty, which is a tough task, has been eliminated. And we have met the relevant poverty reduction targets in the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda 10 years ahead of schedule, and made a major contribution to the global poverty reduction efforts.
中国现行的扶贫标准是一个综合性的多维指标，它既包含人均收入指标，也把两不愁三保障作为贫困人口脱贫的基本要求和核心指标。
The poverty line currently applied in China is a multi-dimensional standard. It includes per capita income, and besides that, there are also a number of requirements and core criteria about the basic living needs of the poor people.
两不愁三保障，就是确保农村贫困人口不愁吃、不愁穿，义务教育、基本医疗、住房安全有保障。这些方面需要大量的财政投入，但在很大程度上提高了贫困人口的生活水平。
Specifically, it means that the rural poor population don't have to worry about food or clothing, and they can have access to compulsory education, basic medical services, and housing. Meeting these needs requires large amount of fiscal input, but they have, to a large extent, raised the standard of living of the poor population.
据我了解，有关部门在制定中国扶贫标准的过程中，参考了世界银行等国际组织的贫困标准。2016年6月，有关部门还专门邀请世界银行反贫困专家组进行了深入的研讨。
As far as I know, when setting the poverty standard, competent departments have taken into account the standards of the World Bank and other international institutions. In June 2016, relevant authorities invited an expert group of the World Bank for a deep-going discussion.
总的看，中国的扶贫标准符合自身经济社会发展水平，高于世界银行2015年确定的每人每天1.9美元的贫困标准，也高于联合国2030年可持续发展议程确定的绝对贫困线。
In general, China's poverty threshold is in line with the country's level of economic and social development. It is higher than the standard set by the World Bank in 2015, which is $1.9 per person per day. It is also higher than the threshold of abject poverty set out in the UN 2030 agenda.
我再补充一点，就是世界银行在2018年又针对不同的国家增设了一些新的贫困标准。据我了解呢，这些标准是作为研究比较用的参考性标准，各国主要还是根据本国的具体情况确定本国的贫困标准。
I would also like to add that in 2018, the World Bank put forth some additional poverty standards. As I understand, these standards are references to support research and comparison, and based on the situation of some countries. In general practice, countries set their poverty standards based mainly on their own national conditions.
从时间上讲，中国的脱贫攻坚战是2015年开始的，要早于世界银行2018年提出的新标准，所以不存在中国刻意选择了一个低脱贫标准这样一个问题。
In terms of timeline, China's intensive campaign against poverty started in 2015, before the World Bank came up with the additional standards in 2018, as I mentioned. So there is no such a thing that China intentionally set a low threshold for poverty elimination.
脱贫攻坚虽然取得全面胜利，但中国解决发展不平衡不充分的问题，缩小城乡区域发展差距，实现人的全面发展和全体人民共同富裕，仍然任重道远。
Despite the accomplishment already achieved, there is still a long way to go to address unbalanced and inadequate development, narrow the rural, urban, and regional disparity, achieve all-round development of people, and shared prosperity for all.
下一步的重点是切实做好巩固拓展脱贫攻坚成果同乡村振兴有效衔接的各项工作，包括保持主要帮扶政策总体稳定，对易返贫致贫人口加强监测，对脱贫地区产业长期培育和支持，对异地扶贫搬迁群众搞好后续帮扶等，坚决守住不发生规模性返贫的底线。
Going forward, the priority is to lock in and expand the achievements in poverty alleviation and align it with efforts to revitalize the countryside. We will keep the major policy support in place, keep an eye on people that may fall into poverty or slip back into poverty, help with the development of local industries in the long run, and ensure follow-up assistance for the relocated, to make sure that there will be no mass return to poverty.
全国人大及其常委会将继续做好有关立法和监督工作，同时呢，发挥好各级人大代表的作用，为巩固脱贫攻坚成果、全面推进乡村振兴贡献力量。谢谢。
The NPC and its standing committee will continue to give priority to poverty-related legislative and supervisory work and give full play to the role of deputies at all levels to contribute to consolidating the progress and revitalizing the rural areas. Thank you.
谢谢，请继续提问。请南区第5排第1位男士提问，谢谢。
你好，韩国韩联社记者提问。中国已成为世界第2大经济体，近年来中国国防支出持续增长，军事实力不断增强，国产航母山东号已交接入列，歼20等先进装备已列装部队。请问今年中国国防费会不会大幅增长？政府将是多少？中国军力发展是否将对其他国家构成威胁？谢谢。
Yonhap News Agency. China is now the second largest economy in the world. In recent years, China's defense spending has been growing. So have its military capabilities. The home-developed aircraft carrier Shandong has entered service. J-20 and other advanced weaponry has been commissioned. So are we expecting a big increase in this year's defense budget of China? And if so, how much will it grow? And does China's growing military capability pose a threat to other countries? Thank you.
谢谢你的提问。中国的国防开支总体上与国家经济发展水平相协调。
Thank you for the question. In general, China's defense spending is commensurate with the overall level of economic development.
保持国防开支适度 稳定增长，是维护国家主权、安全、发展利益，履行国际责任义务，适应中国特色军事变革的需要。
Maintaining appropriate and steady increase of the defense spending is needed to safeguard our sovereignty, security, and development interests, fulfill China's international responsibility and obligations, and promote the transformation of national defense with Chinese features.
中国的国防开支是公开透明的，每年的国防开支预算都纳入国家预算草案，由全国人大审查批准。
China's defense expenditure is open and transparent. Each year, the defense budget is examined and approved by the National People's Congress as part of the overall national budget.
中国在2007年参加了联合国军费透明制度，每年都向联合国提交上一财政年度国防开支的基本数据。
In 2007, China started to report to the United Nations its military expenditure, including all the basic data of the previous fiscal year, and we have done so each year ever since.
衡量一个国家是否对其他国家构成军事威胁，关键要看这个国家奉行什么样的国防政策。
When we look at whether a country poses a military threat to others, the key is what kind of defense policy the country pursues.
中国坚持走和平发展道路，奉行防御性的国防政策，加强国防建设，不针对、不威胁任何国家。谢谢。
In China's case, we are committed to the path of peaceful development, and our defense policy is defensive in nature. The efforts to strengthen our national defense does not target or threaten any country. Thank you.
谢谢，请继续提问。请北区第一排第3位男士提问，谢谢。
您好，新华社记者。今年大会的一个重要议程是审查“十四五”规划纲要草案。那么里边强调呢，要更加重视扩大内需、扩大内循环。那么同时，我们也看到，在去年底，中国陆续签署了这个区域全面经济伙伴关系协定，完成了中欧投资协定谈判等。那您认为，这似乎又释放了进一步扩大开放的一个信号？那您认为这二者之间是否矛盾？怎么样处理这二者之间的关系？谢谢。
Xinhua News Agency. One of the agenda items of the 4th session is deliberation on the draft 14th five-year plan, and the plan has laid greater emphasis on internal circulation driven by expanding domestic demand. Also, at the end of last year, China signed the RCEP and concluded the negotiation on China-EU Comprehensive Agreement on Investment, which signals further opening up. Are these two at odds with each other? How will China handle the relationship between the two? Thank you.
好，谢谢你的提问。今年大会的一项重要议程是审议并通过“十四五”规划纲要和2035年远景目标纲要草案。
Thanks for the question. One of the most important tasks for this session is to review and adopt the 14th five-year plan and the long-range goals for 2035.
在“十四五”规划纲要的执行过程中，人大常委会还将审议规划纲要的中期评估报告，确保目标任务能够如期实现。
In the future implementation of the 14th five-year plan, the Standing Committee of the NPC will also review its midterm report to make sure that all the targets are met on schedule.
坚持对外开放是中国经济取得成功的基本经验之一。参与国际经济大循环，现在跟过去一样重要。
Opening up is one of our experience in the development of China's economy, and engaging in international circulation remains as important today as it was in the past.
中国经济已经深度地融入世界经济，内外需市场本身就是相互依存、相互促进的。
The Chinese economy is deeply integrated into the world economy. Domestic and external demands and markets are very much interdependent, and they complement one another.
构建新发展格局绝不是封闭的国内单循环，而是开放的、相互促进的国内国际双循环，是通过发挥内需潜力，使国内市场和国际市场更好联通，以国内大循环吸引全球资源要素，更好利用国内国际两个市场、两种资源。
The new development paradigm is by no means a closed internal cycle, but about two circulations working together in an open and mutually reinforcing way. It aims to tap into the potential of domestic demand to better connect the Chinese and global markets, leverage the internal circulation to attract global resources and factors, and better harness the two markets and two resources.
中国同有关国家签署区域全面经济伙伴关系协定，完成中欧投资协定的谈判，将有力推动经济全球化和区域经济一体化。这与构建新发展格局并不矛盾。
The signing of the RCEP by China and other participating countries and the conclusion of China-EU Comprehensive Agreement on Investment will strongly boost economic globalization and regional integration. It is compatible with the new development paradigm.
在双循环的新发展格局下，中国将加大制度性开放的力度，继续通过推动贸易和投资自由化、便利化，持续打造市场化、法治化、国际化的营商环境，同世界各国实现互利共赢、共同发展。谢谢。
Under this new paradigm, China will further advance institutional opening up, continue to promote trade and investment liberalization and facilitation, foster a business environment that is based on market principles, governed by law and up to international standards, so as to achieve mutual benefit and common development with countries across the world. Thank you.
谢谢。因为时间已经临近深夜，所以我们提最后一个问题。
Well, as we're getting near to the midnight, we will take one more question.
请南区第二排第3位男士提问，谢谢。
Hi, I'm with the Associated Press. I wanted to ask you, as a former ambassador to the United States, for your views on the China-U.S. relationship under President Biden. As you know, the Biden administration has toned down the rhetoric a bit that we heard from the previous Trump administration, but it continues to appear to take a hard line on many issues that are important to China. I'm wondering, based on what you've heard and what you've seen so far, the statements and the actions of the Biden administration, how do you interpret or how do you judge their statements? Are they sending the right signal or the wrong signal? What is your outlook for the China-U.S. relationship based on the statements that the Biden administration has made? Are you optimistic or pessimistic looking ahead?
美联社记者，作为前中国驻美大使，您如何看待拜登政府时期的中美关系？那么我们看到，拜登政府在对华问题上跟特朗普政府相比，调整了相关的表态。 但是在对中国重要的一些问题上，仍然采取了强硬的态度。根据您所观察的拜登政府一系列对华言行，您如何进行解读？您认为这些言行是正面的，还是错误的？那么，对于未来的拜登执政下的中美关系，您怎么看？基于这些言行，您对于未来的中美关系是持积极态度还是消极态度？谢谢。
好，谢谢你的提问。2月11日，习近平主席同拜登总统通了电话，两国元首就广泛的议题深入交换了意见，双方同意就中美关系或共同关心的问题保持密切联系。
Thank you for the question. On February the 11th, President Xi Jinping and President Biden had a telephone conversation. The two heads of state had an in-depth exchange of views on wide-ranging topics, and the two sides agreed to stay in close touch on China-US relations and issues of mutual interest.
中国的对美政策始终保持高度的连续性或稳定性。中方一贯主张构建不冲突、不对抗、相互尊重、合作共赢的中美关系，同时坚定地维护国家主权、安全和发展利益。
China's policy toward the United States has been highly stable and consistent. It's been China's consistent position to build a China-US relationship in the spirit of no conflict, no confrontation, mutual respect, and win-win cooperation. At the same time, we are determined to safeguard China's sovereignty, security, and development interest.
人类文明多样性是世界的基本特征，也是人类进步的源泉。
Our world is characterized by diverse civilizations. Such diversity is what drives the progress of the entire humanity.
各国历史文化或社会制度各有千秋，没有高低优劣之分。
Countries all have their own histories, cultures, and social systems, and none is superior to others.
我们认为不同的历史文化或社会制度国家不仅应该，而且完全可以和平共处。
We believe that countries with different histories, cultures, and social systems should and can coexist peacefully.
和平共处的关键是相互尊重，包括尊重彼此的历史文化传统，尊重彼此核心利益或重大关切，尊重各自选择的政治制度和发展道路，尊重不干涉内政、和平解决争端等国际关系的基本准则。
The key to peaceful coexistence is mutual respect. Respect for each other's history, culture, and traditions, for their core interests and major concerns, for their own choice of political system and development path, and for the basic norms governing international relations, such as non-interference in internal affairs and peaceful settlement of disputes.
中美两国在一些问题上存在分歧是正常的，断供脱钩损人害己，冲突对抗不符合任何一方的利益。
China and the United States may have disagreements on certain issues. This is only natural. But cutting up supplies or decoupling hurt others without benefiting oneself. Conflict and confrontation serve no one's interests.
两国在气候变化、抗疫、促进世界经济复苏和维护地区和平稳定等广泛领域拥有重要的共同利益。
The two countries have important converging interests in wide-ranging areas, such as climate change, COVID-19 response, world economic recovery, and maintaining regional peace and stability.
双方共同努力，以两国元首通话为契机，加强沟通，聚焦合作，管控分歧，推动中美关系稳定发展，符合两国和两国人民的根本利益，也是国际社会的普遍期待。谢谢。
It is in the fundamental interest of both countries and both peoples for the two sides to work together, take the phone call as an opportunity to enhance communication, focus on cooperation, manage differences, and steadily advance China-US relations. This is also the expectation of the broader international community. Thank you.
谢谢。媒体朋友们，13届全国人大4次会议新闻发布会到此结束。谢谢发言人，谢谢大家。
This concludes today's press conference. Thank you, Mr. Spokesperson, and thank you all.
好，谢谢大家。好。
Thank you.
好，谢谢。